radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. How you doing? It's Tuesday, November 13th, 2018. 320 days into the new year, just 45 days left. That's right. And as always, we're coming to you live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing tonight? Jonny Enoch is here, first-time guest. Got lots to talk about with Jonny. His research and what he's been doing out there for this community. It's all great. And he's going to be doing a couple of out-of-country expeditions, too, as well. He's going to be leading some of that stuff. We're going to be talking about that. Talk about contact, abductions, yeah, and something about a new Area 51. I'm going to talk about that too as well. And you know what? I'm going to bring it up tonight. I'm going to force the issue. Jonny mentioned to me about an experience that a family member of his just recently had. Now, I don't know if he wants to talk about it, but I'm going to try to get it out of him. So then he'll let you know who, what, where, and when. And we'll see. You know how it is. You know, you get guests on this show, and they get comfortable, and the next thing you know, it all comes out. So we'll see. We'll see. Jonny Enoch is here. I'm very excited about this, and nothing like a first-time guest on Fade to Black. Tomorrow night, Patrick Wood is going to be here. I just had Patrick on Sunday night over on Coast to Coast, and we left so much on the table on Sunday with Patrick, and he was on for 2.5 hours on Coast, that I just thought, you know what, we need to pick it up. We need to do 2.0. So we're going to do Technocracy 2.0 tomorrow night here on Fade to Black with Patrick Wood. Thursday night is another Fader night with Teresa Yannaris is here now with Divine Frequency on the airwaves, followed by open lines all night long. That'll be Thursday night. The good news, this is the good news. I'm off this weekend. Yeah. And I have got so much to catch up with. We've got work to do on this studio, work to do in Rita's studio. We've got to install a new computer down there finally. It's gotten to that point, right? So we've got to go and do all of that. I've got production. I've got commercials that got to get cut. We've got events that are coming up. I've got all this new Tascam gear in here that's got to get sitiated. I've got to bust out my contact cleaning spray, and I've got to go through. I got to do that. I got to replace some cables. I've got to restring some guitars. I think I've got a fret job or two that I've been putting off for a year. So I've got, I've got a weekend off. I've got stuff to do. It's going to be great. All right, so there you go. That's the rest of the week. Tonight it's Jonny Enoch. You know what to do. I love my social media on stellar.com, Twitter. Twitter is at JChurchRadio. Over at onstellar.com, I'm just Jimmy Church over there. Facebook, I think is it just Fade to Black, our channel page? Is that what it's called, or is it Jimmy Church Radio? Ugh. It's one or the other. Rita, what's our Facebook page called? I click on it, but I don't know. Anyway, so Facebook. YouTube is Fade to Black, and that's Fade to Black Official right there for YouTube. You can subscribe to our page. And at JChurch Radio, of course, on Twitter. Okay, hashtag F2B on Twitter is where we hang out. Each night, it is live in front of me. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. And then we have 2 chat rooms. Okay, we've got Spreaker and we have KGRA The Planet. So there's 2 chat rooms if you want to go and do that. There you go. That was pretty funny last night. Where are we? But that's what's going on. Spaceballs. I didn't even think about that. But, you know, now when I look over, it's Rick Moranis, man. It's pretty trippy. So that's what's going on over there. All right. Any questions or comments, you can do hashtag F2BQ. You can also email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. All right. Let's get to some breaking news. We got a lot to do tonight on the show. But the breaking news happened today after more than a year of speculation and intense lobbying from cities all across this country. Jeff Bezos ended that suspense today, announcing it's actually going to split into 2, right? 2 headquarters for Amazon called HQ2. So what is it now? Is it HQ2A and B? You know, how are they going to do that? But anyway, they're going to split it between 2 cities, both on the East Coast, New York City and Arlington, Virginia. That's right. Amazon is going to invest $5 billion into these 2 new offices. They're going to employ 25,000 people in each. And additionally, they're going to build a new operations center of excellence, and that is going to be in Nashville, Tennessee, and that's going to employ an additional 5,000 people. Now, when you bring, and that was one of the issues with this, and I saw it playing out. I mean, it's rather obvious. You build a headquarters with 50,000 people, everything changes for that city. Now, some would say, yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to have money and income and employment and everything that comes along with it. What about infrastructure? What about places to live? How about rent control? You know, you bring 50,000 employees with those salaries, suddenly, right? Capitalism kicks into place, right? All that rent in your city that was all cool doubles, right? How do you get people to and from? The traffic? Everything those complications. Well, you always want those problems, but that's what comes with that. So now they're splitting it. So it's 25,000. I think the stress on the locals will be less. It's actually a pretty good idea. But what I found interesting is Arlington and New York City. Yeah, think about that. It's kind of funky, isn't it? Nashville, not so much. Does Nashville, do they still have that Gibson factory there? Did Gibson ever, did they ever file bankruptcy? Weren't they going to do that? What happened with that? Or did they file? Did they go through it? Did they clear? I don't know. But when I think of Nashville, well, I think of a few things, but I think of Gibson, right? I actually, it's kind of weird that I brought that up. And this is because of Amazon. I watched a video yesterday. I took a tour of the Gibson plant, which I've never, it was just like a weird thing for me to do. Ludicrous speed. That's funny. Mark, I can always count on you for the funny stuff. But that is a funny gif right there. Ludicrous speed. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. It is just $2 per month. Go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the podcast banner. Help support the show, right? We have all the apps. Everything's updated, and it goes through every single day. We have over 900 archived shows right there for just $2 a month. You can also become a Fade or Not over in our membership section of the site. Now, we are launching a new jimmychurchradio.com website that's going to launch on New Year's Day on January 1st. With an updated, not only membership section, the entire website, nice and slick and new, and all of the buzzes and whistles that make surfing fun, and the memberships and purchases, and Fade to Black gear, and it's all going to be just beautiful. So I can't wait for that. All right, and Drew tweeted out today that he's posting some of the stuff and the work-throughs that he's doing on the membership section. If you want to jump in and complain, right, and tell him some of your issues, make sure it gets addressed, and you can do that right there, Drew the Geek on Twitter. Okay? Where am I at? You know what? I want Ronnie on the show. I want Ronnie on the show tomorrow. And you know who else I want on the show? We're going to do this on Thursday. I want Juanita here. I want Juanita here from River Moon Coffee. Rita, can you make that happen? I want a conversation with the good folks over at River Moon Coffee. All right, let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Gerard Butler is 49. And if you watch Twitter today, you know that Gerard lost his home, part of his home, in the fires here in Southern California over the weekend. And he did a tour of Malibu and posted that up. And today is his birthday. So happy birthday, Gerard. And I'm really glad and happy that you are pulling people together in the community there and doing your thing. So there you go. Happy birthday, Gerard Butler. Steve Zahn, who I think is amazing. Today, Steve Zahn is 51. He's been doing a lot of voiceover stuff lately. You know, you don't see him in movies, but there are 3 movies that come to mind with Steve Zahn. He'll always make the list because of this. And one is That Thing You Do. That Thing You Do is, one night, Rita and I'm not making this up, we watched it 3 times. back to back to back. That Thing You Do. He is so funny in that. And he's also great in Sahara, right? That Clive Cussler book made into a movie. He's great in Sahara. And he's really good in Shattered Glass. And if you haven't seen Shattered Glass, he's not Mr. Funny Ha-Ha in Shattered Glass. And it shows you what he can really do. Steve Zahn today is 51 years old. All right, on this day in history, OTD. It was a weird day on this day in history. Because I don't even know if you remember this. It was 19 years ago. 1999. Chris Gaines. Do you know who Chris Gaines is? Let me light it up in Twitter. Who in Twitter? Let's see who's fast. Don't cheat on Google. Chris Gaines. Do you remember Chris Gaines? Chris Gaines performed on Saturday Night Live in 1999. And if you don't remember what went down, Chris Gaines was Garth Brooks' rock and roll alter ego. Yeah. Do you even remember that went down? 1999. It was crazy. Chris Gaines. All right. Yeah, Garth Brooks. Very good. Very good. That was Eddie and PA. All right. Fate or fact. Here we go. This is for Macron and what's going on in Europe right now. You ready? In France, this is vetted. In France, it is legal to marry a dead person. And that's your fate or fact. Tonight, very special guest, Jonny Enoch is here. Got lots to discuss. And with Jonny, I can go in any direction. We're going to do that tonight. We're going to have a nice open conversation about UFOs, about ancient history, about lost history, about abductees, about contact. We're going to do it all. Channeling, remote viewing. We're going to do everything tonight. And he's got some information about the new Area 51, so we'll get to that. And a family member of his may have just had a close encounter. Who, what, when, and where, we'll discuss all of that tonight. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm going to try to get it out of him. Tomorrow night, Patrick Wood is here. It's Technocracy 2.0. Thursday night's another Fader night. Teresa Yanaris is going to be here with Divine Frequency on the airwaves, followed by open lines all night long. All right. We're at that point. I got to talk. A lot of noise going around over the last couple of days. Yes, you've read the headlines. Yeah, you have. About what? About a new piece of the, are you ready for this? Of the oh, man. The Antikythera mechanism. Yeah. Has been discovered. Now, although nobody wants this to be true more than myself, we need to take a step back, take a deep breath before we start to celebrate. Man, I'm drinking a mocha. I've got the chocolate going on. Oh, man, that's good stuff. The Antikythera. What am I doing? The Antikythera mechanism. Oh, man. Well, it's something that I've covered on the show a lot. I've researched it a lot over the years. But first, we actually have to go back and let's talk about it for a second. Okay, I'm going to put my serious face on. Okay? It was discovered back in 1901. Greek sponge divers found this encrusted greenish rock. They brought it, they thought it was a rock. They thought it was cool. It was green. So they brought it to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, Greece. And they didn't know what it was. They thought it was interesting. And they see a lot of stuff in the bottom of the ocean. And they come across this. And there was a shipwreck down there. Well, the cargo ship carrying it sank off the coast of that small Greek island of Antikythera over 2,200 years ago. Now, over the years, detailed imaging and x-rays have revealed that it had 37 gear wheels, enabling it to follow the movements of the moon, the sun, follow through the zodiac, to predict eclipses, and to even model the irregular orbit of the moon. Yeah. These gears are precisely made. Now, we're talking about 2,200 years ago. And even that's a guess, by the way. Who made it, what, when, where? Oh, we'll see if I have time to discuss that. But some call it the first computer, and that's not far off. And especially when you consider the dating on this. And what's really interesting to me is I'm a big watch guy. Here, I'll spin around. I'm going to open up a drawer. Let's see. Do I have watches in here? Of course I do. I'll just grab a couple of watches. Right? Okay. Here. Boom. Done. Right? I'm a big watch guy. There's a couple of watches I just pulled out of the drawer. Right? These are automatic watches. You can see Swiss made. Very nice. Right? Okay. I'm a big watch guy. And so when you get into watches like I do, you get into clocks, chronometers, you get into navigation, you follow the technology and how it advanced. Most of and when you think about Big Ben and clocks and grandfather clocks and things, you wind mechanical, not quartz, not that stuff. But the mechanical watches, this is a mechanical watch, okay? So when you get into this with watch magazines and books and different manufacturers, you find out who invented when what, right? Okay, it's very important here because I've researched so much about clocks and watches and their mechanisms over the years. It's that whatever that mechanism is, it's a technology that was lost and forgotten for almost 2,000 years until the development of mechanical astronomical clocks and watches in Europe around the 14th century. And the real cool stuff, like what I'm holding up, this kind of stuff didn't happen until the 17th, 18th century, and automatic movements, 20th century, right? 19th century. There is so much detail for these gears and the timing, and to get the beats per minute and per second correct, so it actually spits out correct time. It's very important for accuracy. And when you're out there dealing with the stars, you don't want to go and run in to an island in the middle of nowhere because your clock was off, right? Well, this technology didn't hit until, like I said, the 14th, 15th century, and the really good stuff didn't happen until the 17th century, right? But the Antikythera mechanism was 2,200 years ago, 200 BC. Between its building and the next, everything was forgotten. There was nothing in between until the 14th century. Nothing. And even that was rudimentary. Who designed it? Who built it? Well, all of that is still up for debate, right? Archimedes, was it built in Sicily? There's part of that. There was an invasion that happened, and the Greeks left southern Italy and tried to make their way back to Greece, and maybe that's when this ship was sunk. And they were escaping, I believe, I don't know, it was the Moors or whoever was coming up from northern Africa. That's a possibility. It's all a possibility, but we really don't know. Whoever built it was a genius. So back to this new discovery. In 2012, a new team of underwater archaeologists returned to re-examine the site, and they discovered hundreds of previously unnoted artifacts. They found bronze statues. They found marble statues. They actually found furniture. They found a bunch of loose change and coins, and they even found a sarcophagus and a sarcophagus lid, right? But that was 2012. 5 years later, in 2017, is when they found this new mechanism, right? And it was the same thing. It's encrusted. It's corroded. It's a disc. When you look at the photograph of it, you can see the round part, and it's kind of square on the outside of it. It's held inside of something. But that's what everybody is talking about today. And it's only about 8 centimeters across, right? So it's about this big. It's not very big. And X-ray analysis has revealed an engraving of the zodiac sign Taurus. That's right, Taurus the bull. Now, that's when things get interesting. We don't know if it's part of the original Antikythera mechanism. We don't know. We don't know if it's a new separate device. We don't know that. A second ancient computer, which to me, both of these are compelling ideas and extremely exciting. But Taurus the bull suggests the obvious, that the mechanism is for pointing towards that constellation, right? That's why it's there. But are there more engravings, right? We don't know. The discovery didn't happen last week. It happened last year, and they have been investigating it for quite a while. This isn't something that just happened. But if it is part of the OG mechanism, how did it attach to it, right? The best part about all of this is that we get to once again focus our attention to the great Antikythera mechanism and figure out all of the mysteries that are still hidden inside of it. And you got to love it. Seriously. The reason why I'm talking about it today, and the reason why it blasted out all over the internet, trust me, I got all of your emails, Jimmy. Have you seen this? Have you seen it? Yes, I got it all. And this is the reason why everybody reacted to it, is because the original Antikythera mechanism is something that it's not only an enigma, and it's a one-of-a-kind thing, but it wasn't supposed to be, right? It is. It's like an O part. right? It's an out-of-place object. And the most interesting thing for us is trying to figure it out. Yes, computer, yes. Who built it? Yes, all of this. In ancient times, no less. But now there's a second one. And it just, boom. And it seems like, for me, and I went back and checked, it's been 5 years since I discussed it on this show, since anybody else has brought it up on this show. And now we have the opportunity to go back. It's one of the most wonderful objects that we have on this planet. Unbelievable discovery. And if you think about the odds of how it went down, it makes the story even better. We're talking about sponge divers holding their breath in 1901. Yeah. And if they hadn't have been at the right place at the right time, the discovery would have never have happened. And I love it. These are exciting times. My guess, this is my guess, unless they can figure out a way, because they've got the models of the Antikythera right now that are out there are running. They're functional. They've got the teeth count. They work. They've built the boxes. You can go and see plenty of videos of this, and it's great. How does it attach, and what would this do in addition? Because the Zodiac is already applied to the original. So is this a second device? That's the cool part. And I think that the news today and yesterday and today, the way that they broke it, I think it's a little misleading. It should be a second device has been found. That's my take, and that's what I think it is. I think it's a separate box. So think about that. All right, I'm going to get out of here. We have Jonny Enoch is here tonight, and first-time guest. Tomorrow night, Patrick Wood is going to be here, Technocracy 2.0. Thursday night is another Fader night with Teresa Yannaris and her divine frequency on the airwaves, followed by open lines all night long. I am your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. That's right. Email is Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. You can follow me on Twitter at jchurchradio. All of that is simple. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. I'll be right back with our guest, Jonny Enoch. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on jimmychurchradio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices, and let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to getthetea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best, naturally. All you have to do is log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. Getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find Fast Start Diet on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code TALK to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, Fast Start will include their #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. This is Jimmy Church. And whatever your diet plans are, do what I did. Go to faststartdiet.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Jonny Enoch is here. First-time guest. Looking forward to this conversation. Tomorrow night, Patrick Wood, Tenocracy 2.0. Thursday night's another Fader night. Teresa Yannaris is going to be here. Divine Frequency on the airwaves, followed by Open Lines all night long. So there you go. That's our week. Like I said, I've got the weekend off, so it's housework. Yeah, I got to work all weekend. Tonight is Jonny Enoch. He's a trained clinical hypnotherapist, lecturer, writer from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. Not only has he been researching extraterrestrial phenomena and esoteric subjects for over 20 years, but after witnessing a series of unexplainable events while growing up, his search for answers has led him on adventures all over the world. This includes interviewing ET contactees, whistleblowers, and UFO witnesses. Currently, he is a featured speaker on the Ancient Mysteries Tour of Egypt, the Serpentine Mysteries Tour of Peru and Bolivia with Brian Forrester at Hidden Inca Tours. He's also writing a book on advanced civilizations and ancient consciousness technologies, and his YouTube channel is called Metaphysical Source. I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Jonny Enoch. Jonny, good evening. What took you so long?
I don't know, Jimmy, but it's good to be here. And actually, before we go any further tonight, can I ask that you and all the Fadernauts out there send healing and loving energy to our dear friend, Daniel Brinkley. And since I know you're listening, Daniel, we all love you, and you still got more work to do.
Yeah, I talked to Daniel Sunday night. He was with me over on Coast to Coast, and you know, that's the thing, and I was kind of joking with him a little bit. It was just like he's getting too good at this near-death experience stuff. I mean, it's wow, you know, and this is the 4th time around for him, the 4th. It's just absolutely incredible. But you know what? He assured me, and thank you for that, Jonny, seriously. he assured me that he's going to be just fine. He just ain't ready. And I was like, okay. You know,
he always says that. He says, I'm not afraid to go home. And I believe him.
Yeah, I would totally. He is such a big, tall, in shape, guy. And, soft-spoken for sure, and his feet are on the ground. But if he doesn't want to go, and that's it. That's where I've got to plant my thoughts, and I'm totally cool with that. He's an amazing guy. So you're absolutely right. Thank you for that. Now, before we get started, we've got to do the first-time guest disclaimer, young man. So let's get that out of the way, which is, Johnny, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. Where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. You ready?
I'm ready, Jimmy.
Let's do this. You know what? Okay, see, this is the thing. With you, and I'm very excited to finally have you on the show, but with you, I can go in absolutely any direction. And when I have an open conversation, which is what I do every single night, I like having that comfort zone that wherever, we can go left, right, straight, and I'm excited about that with you. But before we go there, I want to go back. You've been doing this for 20 years, and I know this is like interview or conversation 101, but I've got to know with you, for the audience, what happened? Something happened in your life where you went down this path instead of another. There was a single event there. What was it?
Well, Jimmy, it was actually a series of events. When I was growing up in my house, there were all sorts of very strange things happening. First of all, as I like to tell people, my sister, who's now in her 30s, she doesn't like to talk about any of this stuff that you and the Fadernauts talk about. She's not into the paranormal. She's not into ufology. She's more interested in what the Kardashians are doing in Calabasas rather than little gray men most of the time. But she has an experience from when she was 12 years old of the gray extraterrestrials that we typically hear people talking about, with the large hairless heads and the large teardrop eyes staring directly through her bedroom window at her. And when we were growing up in our house, my mom will say to this day that we were complaining about little gray men in our bedroom. She herself had very strange experiences. And I can also recall when I was growing up having these out-of-body experiences where I was floating peacefully above my bed, looking down at myself, or sometimes being thrust up into these holofractal multicolors, going up into these strange places. But you see, Jimmy, I wasn't able to get answers in my house because it was a very religious household. There was an information embargo. So I like to joke that when other kids my age, other boys were hiding Playboys under their bed, I was hiding the esoteric books and the crystals. And if I wanted to see the Playboys, I had to go to their house.
Right.
And so for me, this started a lifelong obsession, a fascination of looking into the mysterious, of immersing myself into the world of the occult. And that is also, brought me into the areas of using various modalities for these investigations, which is why I began working with clinical hypnotherapy to go deeper into what these ET contactees were saying, of looking into counseling and psychology. And then it just sort of grew into this obsession in my studies of traveling all over the world and visiting ancient temples and crawling under the crypts and deciphering the hieroglyphics on the sides of the temple. And I'm sure that you can speak to this, and so can the Fadernauts, that the rabbit hole just keeps getting weirder the deeper you go down it.
Yeah. Sometimes I get nervous. I used to find a subject early on, in the 90s, and I would find a subject where real rabbit holes, and I would go down, and I started to get to the point where I didn't want, because it would take up 2 weeks of every minute of every day, right? And I couldn't come out of it. And so, the rabbit holes is something that I enjoy doing. I learned very quickly how easy it is to get sucked into a subject, and I would do it over and over again. So with you, the gray aliens in the house, your sister, your parents talking about it, what hhappened after that, though? Did they continue? Did you have another encounter? Was there something else that continued things?
I think for me, it was all sorts of things that were starting this fascination of asking questions and looking at these subjects. For example, when I was talking about my out-of-body experiences, when you leave your body and you start to go into other realities, you start to question and you start to look at other explanations from what we've been told conventionally, and most certainly, you know, these experiences that we had early on with these extraterrestrials or these beings made me ask a lot of questions and say, okay, is there more to the story? I mean, where does this lead? And so that's where I started, you know, encountering other people that had these experiences and interviewing them and going deeper into what they were saying. And the work I've done with clinical hypnotherapy brought me into a whole other strange light with this. Because, Jimmy, I don't know if you've ever looked at the work of Dolores Cannon or any of the ET contactees that have gone through clinical hypnotherapy work, but it's very strange because you start to see that people have this missing time and that they start to describe experiences like the inside of a ship or places that they've been to, or when they're going through their experience, it's like they're going through it in a simultaneity as if space-time has warped and shifted, and the extraterrestrials that are interfacing with them in their experience are now talking to you, the practitioner. Mm-hmm. So it was almost like these seeds were planted and it just unraveled.
The reality today for you, how has that changed versus what you thought was going on 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and what you have learned and where you have arrived today? What do you think is going on? Is this contact interdimensional? Is it actually physical? Are there crafts coming down and grays coming off of the, and you know, physically, or is there something else? What have you learned?
Well, it's all of the above, you know, and what I've looked at, and, you know, I believe that we've had a lost language of symbolism that's been hidden all over the world. And the great esoteric historian Manly Palmer Hall, mm-hmm. who did most of his talks and lectures over there near Griffith Park in California by Los Feliz, I mean, he was telling this to people for years and years, that there was an ancient consciousness technology that had been embedded throughout all of our ancient religions that was staring at us in broad daylight, that this entire human race and everything that we have, from our linguistics to our symbology to our traditions and everything, is leading us to this entire picture. It's basically given us breadcrumbs. So we've never been alone on this planet. And from what I've learned is that there is, you know, components of this where we're dealing with a very physical reality, and then we're dealing with a sort of an interdimensional reality. And I think Sergeant Major Bob Dean said it best when he was talking about his story. He said when he was stationed at SHAPE, Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe, mm-hmm. for NATO back in '63, he said he was absolutely shocked to learn that he was seeing top secret documents back then that said the military was aware that we were being visited for thousands of years, Jimmy. And I'm sure you've heard this before.
Yes.
And when he said, actually, if they were out to take us over, they could have done so a long time ago, but they were quite peaceful. And he learned even back then that they were not only interplanetary, not only interstellar, intergalactic, but also multidimensional.
I'll tell you something funny. Manly P. Hall, across mm-hmm. the street from our studio.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's right here. Yeah.
I am the biggest Manly P. Hall fan, and I have everything he's ever done, and I love that. That's a wonderful fact.
Yeah, he's absolutely incredible. And when you start to research some of these things, where we are, it's part of the coolness of Southern California, where we are in Burbank. So you have JPL and all of the craziness and the history of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. It's right here, right? So you've got that. You've got Manly P. Hall, across the street. You've got L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology on every block here. And every time you turn, there's something else. Yvonne Smith and her group. I could just go on and on and on what
Jimmy, you
happens right here.
You were preaching to the choir. I find that Southern California is one of the most magical, mysterious places. In fact, one of my dearest friends in the whole world and my mentors is Jordan Maxwell. And when I go on road trips with him, we hang out over in Burbank. We go to Pinocchio's there.
Yep.
We go to all those places, and he's been telling me for years all the stories of supernatural and otherworldly things that go on around there in Burbank. It's a magical place.
Yeah, Skunk Works right here.
Yes.
You know, it's when you, when I go down the list of subjects, and you can go literally in each direction, and everything is happening right here in Southern California. I mean, it goes now. I'm also see. This is the thing. You've got it going on in Vancouver. There are so many stories and so much history with ufology and the esoteric in Canada, right?
Yes,
and
there is.
Of course, you've got ESETI just south of you. You know, that's right there. And so it goes on all over the place. It's not just here. And I do have to leave town for the fun stuff. You know, I've got to leave town for Joshua Tree or Sedona or Shasta or ESETI. But anyway, so I want to actually go back and to the thought, the contact side of things with those grays. I find that interesting. But did you start to see stuff in the skies too at a young age?
I've seen stuff in the skies, and, you know, I've seen, you know, a craft move and then stop all of a sudden to make a strange flight formations and all sorts of moving lights and things all my life I've encountered like that. But, you know, bringing it back to what you were saying about Canada and these encounters, I don't think people really appreciate how, especially people that are in Canada, they don't appreciate how much of a history we have with ufology here.
Right.
And I mean, we can say that there is a plethora of stories, all kinds of incredible stories that we get from the southwestern United States, and there are. But in Canada, I don't know. Have you ever heard of the Falcon Lake incident?
Absolutely. See, look, and I've every time I have a Canadian researcher on the show, I always bring up the same question. Why is it that Canada is ignored? Some of the events up in Canada are some of the most documented, amazing contact, sighting, official, noted events in all of ufology. And nobody talks about it. I really don't get it. I don't.
I agree. And, you know, I don't limit myself geographically to one area. I mean, I'm fascinated by all the stories we get. Like if Nick Pope is talking about something over in the UK, if we go over to any of these areas, I'm interested, even over in Brazil or something. But in Canada, as you know, we've had the Stefan Michalak case, which I think is sort of like our Roswell. That was back in 1967, and it was very well documented with the RCMP. And then we had the Shag Harbor incident over in Nova Scotia. Also, that was in October 4th, 1967, where it was widely seen, mass witnesses. The RCMP documented it, and that was fascinating. We had Miriam Delicato's case over here in northern British Columbia. But it's interesting because I've actually had conversations with the former Canadian Defense Minister of Canada, the Honorable Paul Hellyer, and he'll tell you actually when you sit down with him that extraterrestrials are real and that they're working with our scientists and military on government bases, and the people just aren't ready for it yet. But it actually goes even further than that, Jimmy, because, you know, I've had sit-downs and talks with our First Nations elders here, and, you know, even Derek White Sky Cloud here and others, and they've told me that we have extraterrestrials here. They have underground bases, and they've been working with their people for a long time with the Métis, and they call them the Star Brothers with the Star Lodge. So it's amazing.
The Falcon Lake incident, when you just brought up Shag Harbor too as well, where not only documented physical evidence, you know, Stan, and you can help me out here, but my memory was he had the crazy burns on his stomach
That's right.
And, so here you have the reports, you have the physical side of it completely documented. This wasn't ancient history. It was in the 60s when that went down. And it's just one of those cases that should be, when people talk about Roswell, or they talk about Air Force bases or whatever the famous, Rendlesham, Falcon Lake should be, part of that conversation. It just should be, and Shag Harbor as well.
Well, we actually released a coin here in Canada recently from the Canadian Mint, and it sold out very, very quickly. It was a UFO coin commemorating this very famous sighting. But there's an even more interesting story I heard recently from Derek, who I was just mentioning, Derek White Sky Cloud, who's also an ET contactee, and he was telling me he was traveling recently, Jimmy, through an area called Clearwater in British Columbia. And it was very interesting because in this little town we have called Clearwater, it looks like this is sort of our version of Roswell. And you know what it's like when you go to Roswell. You have the Roswell Museum there. You have the street lamps like little alien heads. The gas station is done up like UFOs. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. I love going to Roswell. Well, he said you go to Clearwater here, and as soon as you go into this little town called Little Fort, there was a sign up that had a UFO with little extraterrestrials that were eating ice creams. And they had a UFO museum and all this UFO merchandise, and it became a UFO tourism hotspot here in BC. There were so many abductions, so many sightings, so many people talking about little green men and extraterrestrials that they were going crazy for it. And then what happened is, according to the locals, is that you get the municipality involved. You get a mayor or a council, and they say, you guys need to stop talking about UFOs because you're scaring people off. So we had this sort of UFO tourism, and I think the UFOs that are coming in here with the extraterrestrials love the wide open space. They love that they can set up in a little logging town, and there's very little publicity to what's going on.
What happened in Clearwater? Tell me about that case.
There's a lake nearby there. And according to some of the reports, there's even reports online from years ago about this, the ETs that were coming and going, they were seeing a craft come out of the lakes. And that's been the case. I've heard a lot of reports, actually, of UFOs that will have bases under the water, that will go into these particular areas and come out of them. And in that place, they'd set up shop and they were going to town. They were just taking everybody in for abductions and experiments and examinations. And that was going on for some time, allegedly in Clearwater, according to the locals there.
What year?
As far as I know, that potentially went on to the 80s, 90s. There's reports online of it. The locals were just saying this. And Derek was saying that, someone really needs to go in there with a video camera and start getting testimonies.
You do.
I'm thinking about it. I'm going to head over there soon.
I have never heard about this. And that's why we do Fade to Black right there. What was the town? It was Clearwater, and what was the other town?
The town is called Little Fort, and you'll find that there is a sign up on the side of the road. This is one of the last signs that they haven't been ordered to take down yet, according to the locals. The sign shows for an ice cream shop is a UFO with that's basically advertising the UFO tourism. The UFOs and the abductions were so plentiful there, and people talking about them, that they actually even had a little UFO museum.
And it's Little Fort, F-O-R-T, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. The images that I'm looking at here, and I just want to confirm this because I think I just saw the sign that you're talking about. Wow, there's a lot of, okay. Interesting. And where is this in relation to, you said it's a BC?
Yes, you want to go up into northern British Columbia area. So, yeah, you're going to be getting into some wide open territory up there. And if you're coming out this way, it will be an amazing road trip. Believe me.
Little Fort, Canada. There you go. Yeah, there's a nice little UFO right there on the sign. Interesting. Who knew?
Isn't
right?
it? I mean, and this is the kind of stuff that people just don't talk about. But when we start looking at it, we find that it doesn't matter where you look. I mean, you probably just saw on the news that over in Ireland, they're talking about they just saw UFOs. The UFOs are absolutely ubiquitous. Guys in Hong Kong are telling me about their experiences in Japan, over in Turkey. It's everywhere.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, there's Clearwater. What is that, Chua? The other,
I think you're saying it right.
Yeah, it's a little town right there, Dun Peak. Okay, yeah, you're right. It is in the middle of nowhere, and especially when you look at it in satellite, there is absolutely nothing there. So, yeah, just east of Vancouver. Very interesting, Johnny. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll pick up where we're leaving off now. I do want to discuss your family member. I'll let you reveal everything after the break and tell us what happened just recently. And, if it's getting into a zone where you're uncomfortable, that's fine. But
that's a good story. I can't wait to get into it.
Okay, so let's do all of that. Our guest tonight, Jonny Enoch. Now, Johnny, your YouTube page is called what?
Metaphysical Source, and that's where people can find all my investigations around the world into fairies and ancient Egypt and strange mysteries. It's all there.
Okay, and we've got the links up over at jimmychurchradio.com. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Jonny Enoch. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on jimmychurchradio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices. And let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to getthetea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best, naturally. All you have to do is log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. Getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show. On the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find Fast Start Diet on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code TALK to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, Fast Start will include their #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. This is Jimmy Church, and whatever your diet plans are, do what I did. Go to faststartdiet.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Jonny Enoch. Finally, Johnny is here. Tomorrow night, Patrick Wood. Thursday night is Fader night. Friday, I'm off. Yeah, man. Somebody said last night, I think it was Mark, dude, you've got dark circles under your eyes. And my reaction was, hey, you have no idea. But I don't complain. No, my brain may be a little scrambled, and, but it's all good. Tonight it's Jonny Enoch. Now, Johnny, what? Okay, I'm going to. I don't know a whole lot, and again, if this is an uncomfortable zone for you to go into, that's fine. But you had said to me that you had a family member that indeed had a close encounter recently. What happened?
Yeah, Jimmy. So it's very interesting when this work hits close to home because, we hear about all these other cases about people getting taken or abducted and having missing time or seeing beings. But when it happens to a family member, then you really start to pay attention. You start to listen. So a couple nights before Halloween, I was doing a clinical hypnotherapy session here, and I was doing one of the life between life protocols using Dr. Michael Newton's work, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. Mm-hmm. And actually, it takes a lot of work with the inductions to get someone into the right state. And, I'd been about a half an hour into this particular session, and all of a sudden the phone rings. And I was like, oh, my God, what a rookie move. I forgot to turn off the phone. And it just interrupted the whole session. I look at the phone, and there it is, someone I mentioned earlier, Derek White Sky Cloud. I have to talk about him again because it seems like, Jimmy, the more I work with people, contactees, and I work with people in this world and immerse myself into it, the more I get drawn into it. And it's all just sort of connected. Everything that's happening is connected through other people. And I'm sure that you and the Fadernauts have experienced that as well. So it's very strange. He calls me up and he's very excited. So I said, okay, Derek, I'm listening. You just interrupted this awesome hypnosis case. I don't know whether to be excited about what you're going to tell me or frustrated. And he says, I have something important to tell you. You're going to want to hear this because I know, he says, I know you love hearing when there's an ET case, there's something important to investigate. So I listened to him. He said that he had happened to set up in this particular place, and I can't give the exact location away yet because it's still in investigation. It's still under an investigation that we're doing here, but it's between Vancouver and Hope, so it's more eastbound from Vancouver. And he says to me that he was set up at a place at sort of this conference event where he was talking about these sort of subjects that we all talk about. And when he was there, these 3 19-year-old women approached him. And they said to him, Derek, we've heard, what you talk about. We know that you're familiar with abductions and extraterrestrials who want to talk to you. So he says, I'm listening. And they tell him that a few days before that they were up into this mountainous area, and they were going for a walk up to a park. And it was about 10:30 a.m. in the morning. And as they were up there just walking, they encountered 3 extraterrestrials in broad daylight that approached them in this park. And these were the Greys. And that's the last thing they remember in this little park in this mountainous area. Later on that evening at 9 p.m., they woke up inside their car, and they were all wearing different clothes. And in fact, this is so strange, they said that each of them had a puncture mark in their back in the exact same spots. And Derek examined the puncture marks. 2 of them were very receptive to talking about this and hearing what he had to say. And the third one was very nervous and wanted to go, did not want to talk about it. So this was all very interesting. And Derek was telling me this. It was about 10 p.m. at night. So, Jimmy, after I heard this, I said, this is very interesting. I took some notes and I said, I'm going to look into this the next day. That evening, I wanted to actually go to bed a little earlier. I was feeling tired. So for some reason, I don't usually do this. For some reason, I turned the ringer off of my phone. I thought, I get all these people that call me about things. I said, I'm not going to answer any more phone calls this evening. I turned the phone off and I go to bed. That evening, it was so strange. My son, who's 14, and his friend who were having a sleepover, and they actually live in that area. They actually were in this very area, which is so strange. They tried to call me and text message me about 30 times. And they said, I got all these messages in the morning. I said, oh, my God, OMG, you're not going to believe what happened to us. This is the craziest thing. And it was the most bizarre thing when I talked to them. They said that evening, which is a couple nights before Halloween, they were going up to this park, and Jimmy, I know out where you're living that the 4th of July is the big night for fireworks out there for you guys.
Right.
But over here in Canada, we like to let off fireworks at Halloween. That's sort of our night to do it. So right around that time, you hear a lot of firecrackers and things going off. So they were going around as boys do, and they wanted to let off a few fireworks. So they kind of meandered over to this park at about 10:30 at night. At this very park where these 3 19-year-old women had this experience with the extraterrestrials. And this park is very particular. I sent you some pictures of it. It's very small. It's nestled up next to the mountains, just beyond a suburban area. And there's one small Mickey Mouse little light there and a water supply area behind it that's fenced off and secured that you can't get into. And this is behind a chain link fence. So as they go into this park, they think they're there by themselves, and they start rummaging through their backpack. And all of a sudden, they hear something in the distance. They hear a and they go, what's that? They look beyond the trees, and up behind the trees, in a large tree in front of them, an 8-foot-tall gray extraterrestrial, as they've described it to me, with dolphin-like skin and large black eyes, peeks its head from behind the tree with a long neck, long arms, and long feet. And this is very particular, the way they describe this, because they actually said to me, especially my son's friend, who's been very frantic throughout this whole thing. I mean, this kid, you can tell that they've been shaken to the very core. He said that they had hoof-like feet. And actually, what's very interesting is that on the site, as he pointed out to me, you can actually see the footprint areas, these circular patterns in the ground that are very particular from where they were walking beyond the trees.
Okay, Johnny, Johnny, let me jump in. We have 2 images here that you sent me. You sent me one of the park, the chain link fence, and the trees that you're talking about. The second image below that. Now, we're going to get these up in Twitter right now for everybody to see. The second image is what's in the second image?
Okay, the second image, I have to build up to that, because the second image is what I want to tell everyone is supposedly 3 fingers. Okay. And I'm going to describe why that is. And what happened is that he said that the first being that came forward was about an 8-foot-tall gray extraterrestrial.
Gotcha.
The 2 other beings were much shorter. They said in the 4'8" five something category. And from what I've been told by other experiencers is that sometimes these are sort of the scientist beings, and those are like their worker drones. And so they said to me that the ship was just behind the fence. There was a fence behind these trees, and it was more in this secured water supply area that you see in this picture. So what happened on that first night, Jimmy, and this is leading up to how we got the picture of the three fingers, is that they see these beings and they go, holy crap, we have to get out of here. And then they start freaking out and they run. They're in psychic shock. And as they're running away from this place, the one taller gray starts walking towards them and waving its hands for them to come back to them. And as they're running, they say that there's actually a time missing that they don't remember, that there's about 1 hour of time that just went missing. And it leads back to them being at the house later that evening. My son's friend tells me that he woke up in the night later that evening with a tap on his shoulder and he couldn't breathe and he had a red mark around his neck. And since that moment, he was intimately connected with these beings. He felt that, he could see them in his mind and had all sorts of correspondences with them. So to bring this forward a little bit here, Jimmy, I, of course, hear this in the morning. I say, we're definitely going back to that site, boys. You get your stuff together. We're going back. And I said, let's go back even that next night when there's no one around so that we can have a better chance of encountering these beings. So we go there to the site, and as we pull up, we walk up with them, and I tell you, it was like I was hit with this wave of electromagnetic energy. You know that feeling, Jimmy, and maybe the Fadernauts can relate to this, that when you walked into a haunted house or something, you ever felt that when the hairs stand up in the back of your neck, can you get the goosebumps?
Love it.
Yes, and that's what we felt immediately. I walk up to this site and immediately that's where I feel this wave after wave coming over my entire body. And I thought, wow, there is definitely something there because I've been to this park and I've never felt that before. And so I go up to this park and we walk up to the fence and immediately my son's friend starts trembling at the knees. He says he feels a magnetic pull towards the fence and he starts saying he feels sick to his stomach. He's terrified, doesn't even want to walk up to the front. He tells me they're there and they're watching you right now. I can see them. And I said, I can't see them right now myself. I said, are you sure? And I said, I can feel it. I feel there's something there. And he said, I don't know how you can't see them, but he said, there's one right there on the other side of that fence standing there and it's holding up three fingers. And I said, well, I don't see a darn thing. I said, take my phone. And I said, you take a picture of it, of the three fingers. And he took a picture right there. And that's what came out, that picture that you're looking at that looks like there's three fingers. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Okay, we're going to get that up too as well. We got the fence just posted. Now, as I get up the three finger shot, I'm going to do that next. Describe what everybody's going to see in the three fingered shot.
What you're going to look at there is it looks like it's almost like an ectoplasm. It looks like some sort of holographic image of a gray holding up three fingers. It's very interesting. And I don't know what else it could be. I've looked at it. He took it just in the pitch darkness there. It was unbelievable that showed up the way it did. And he said that, they're walking around. He was describing what they look like. But what's very interesting about this, Jimmy, is that this story gets even weirder. It gets, I don't even know where to go with it because there's a community watch bulletin that was put out on the area in this particular area for Facebook that week talking about people to beware of UFOs in the area. And then on top of that, what's very strange is another guy I know named Chad Warren out in these parts. He found out about this. So he went over to the site. I told him where to look. And he said he was going to go look for these footprints that we described there to you that have the that have these hoof-like marks. And he was going to go do what the people in the cryptozoology area do. And this was Derek's suggestion, to take a plaster mold and measure the marks for these footprints that were allegedly left there by the extraterrestrials. So he goes to the site, and he first brings his friend Lars and another friend, Christina, and he had a very peculiar encounter there, and a very strange thing happened, Jimmy. He goes to the site, he takes the molds, and he finds better footprints on the other side that the boys never even went on the other side of the fence. And he gets incredible plaster casts, and he's going to be posting those online very soon. But when he was there, the girl that they were with, Christina, she starts hearing static in her head, and she's overcome with this electromagnetic energy and almost an anxiousness and sickness. They are mind melding with her, like scanning her when she comes near the site. She has to go back to the car. And then this guy in the neighborhood comes jogging by. His name is Jason. And I think he's a listener. So if he's listening out there, hey, Jason, I talked to him on the phone when they were there. They come out there and he tells Chad that they have seen UFOs over this park. And he said he's seen 2 UFOs come and go right over the park and shine a light and stop there. And while they were in the park, I kid you not, this is the absolute truth, Jimmy, I swear to you. They were in the park on the phone with me, and a UFO comes right over the park and stops right above them, and the lights go on and starts to strobe right above it in the area as if to let them know they were there. So this one hit very close to home for me.
What when I look at the 3 fingers image, Johnny, your son's friend took this particular picture, right?
That's right.
Okay, now I literally can see the 3 lines going through the center of the pic. And if you look at it, we've got to post it up here on Twitter. And it's, you just kind of got to move your head around a little bit, but it's definitely there. It almost looks like the letter E.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to make of it.
Very interesting. And so there's the road, there's the fence in the background, right? I don't know if that's a road or a sidewalk or a path. But
yes.
There's the fence, there's the trees, you can see the park. What's interesting about this image is how it's so grayed out. I see the 3 fingers better in the thumbnail than I do when it's enlarged, by the way. And when it's smaller, it's like right there. That's pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting image, man. You need to get some analysis done on this.
I do want to. Now I have other video and audio, but I mean, I'd have to get some sort of permission from the other boy's parents to release it. But I mean, the stuff that he said on video and audio is terrifying. Like what he was describing and how he was reacting. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, he was shocked to the core. This is all they could talk about, believe me, for days, is that, and now, believe me, I think they're on a lifelong path of looking up everything there is to do with extraterrestrials. I think this is that experience that they have that now they're seeded into it.
No doubt, no doubt. I want to go back to the original fence picture with the trees. When he said he's right there, where would that ET have been in this pic?
Now, if you look on the other side of that fence, we are on the side of the fence in that pic where the park is. There's a little swing set there, the little Mickey Mouse park. Mm-hmm. On the other side of that fence, there's a water supply station with a platform. It's totally sectioned off from the public, and it's surrounded by a mountainous area with forests. And I don't know if it's just a coincidence, but the days following that event, there were black helicopters going into that area. And I've been told, I don't want to sound too much like a conspiracy theorist here, but I've been told that's usually military. And it's interesting that it's the perfect place. If you were extraterrestrials and you wanted to park down into a suburban area and bring people into that area, and you wanted to do, experiments and abductions, it would be the perfect place. It's a perfect rendezvous place.
UFOs like water.
Oh, yeah, they do.
So you're saying that this guy, again, you should have some analysis done, but he was back on the other side of the fence towards this water station?
Yes, and there's a group of them. So according to him, when he would see them, and most certainly the first night he said the taller gray came forward, but on the second night he said the taller grays stayed back towards the ship. The taller grays, the 8-foot tall one, was further back behind the trees, whereas on the second night when we came there, the one that came up towards the fence area that was looking at us, holding up the 3 fingers, he said it was a much shorter one. But for some reason, he was able to perceive them, and it was acting very strange with all sorts of physiological reactions and things. I could feel them, but I think it's maybe they had some sort of a cloaking mechanism, as I know our militaries do now. They have like metamaterials and stuff like that. So it was a very strange experience, Jimmy.
Now, and your son and his friends, no UFO interest before this?
Zero. I mean, they didn't care about this stuff. As far as they're concerned, they're out skateboarding and letting off fireworks. And after this, believe me, they don't care about fireworks. And I don't think they've been thinking about skateboards.
Yeah, that's second image. And, well, the image is fine, and that's great. But having their testimony from somebody that is, at that age and that isn't part of the community, it's their descriptions that I find most compelling here.
I do too. And that's why we're looking into it. And the thing for me that's fascinating is that there are locals of this place that Chad Warren here, that he's been gathering up their testimonies and looking at the plaster castings and talking about the UFOs now that are coming together because of this. And it was like a snowball effect when I first heard about the 3 19-year-old women that were at this site. And there must be other people now that are coming forward. So I'm excited to see where that goes.
Now, what about the 3 19-year-old girls? What's up with them, and are you in contact?
I know that they made contact with Derek White Sky Cloud, and I'm interested to see what becomes of that. So he's the one that's going to know where their testimony's gone. He said they were very apprehensive to talk about it, but the thing that was strange, Jimmy, is that I got the call about them. Literally within a half an hour or an hour within getting all those messages from my son and his friends. So, I mean, it was so strange. And stuff like that happens all the time with these investigations. Now, I find that there's a pattern. It's like one person will talk to this other person, then something strange will unfold. And that seems to be how it works in the world of extraterrestrials.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing here. To have Derek make contact with these 3, and then your son at the very same park has his contact with his friends, there's something going on. You need to talk to those 3 girls. What do you think ultimately is happening here? Do you think that they made contact with the same ETs? And the other part, maybe you can answer this first. The girls having different clothes on, that's obviously a very disturbing statement. Their clothes
it is, and I've heard
removed.
that actually before. People coming out from these abduction experiences and waking up in pajamas or waking up in someone else's clothes and not knowing where they are. And that's one thing that is the pattern that I find again and again, Jimmy, is that in these contact cases, people often have missing time. In some of the cases where I've worked with people using the clinical hypnotherapy, they will see that there was a time in their life that they thought they had kidney stones or a false pregnancy or some area, and they blacked out, or they didn't know what was happening, or they didn't know where they were going. When you take them back and you regress them, they find out they were in a very warm, loving room on an examination table with extraterrestrial beings opening them up and doing all sorts of fertility experiments. So stuff like that comes out, and it's like Pandora's box once you start looking at it.
Did your son or his friends report anything about missing time? They wouldn't even know what they were talking about.
They said there was an hour or so that they couldn't account for within those timelines that evening. And then later in the evening, they talked about things coming up. And, it's strange, Jimmy. I have to tell you this, is that I reported this myself, that the day after we visited that site, all of us, everyone that visited that site, including my son and his friend, all of us woke up from dreams and ideas and thoughts we had with full images of the extraterrestrials. And I don't think it was just because they were describing them. We actually saw them and all had the sort of same messages, because what I believe and what I've seen is that these beings have the ability, especially with the Greys and others that have that metamorphic and telepathic communication system, they have the ability to mind meld with you, right? And you sort of feel their family and their life and their experiences, and they feel yours. And Cliff Stone's been talking about that for years in his encounters.
Now, what did you see? I mean, what did you actually see? Did you see anything?
What I saw was physical, what appears to be physical evidence. I saw the footprints that he was pointing out to me, exactly where he said that they had been walking and standing. He said they're like hoof-like prints, and he was panicked, pointing them out to me. And I was able to see what appeared to be shifts or movements in light. That was about it. But for me, it was the overwhelming feeling, Jimmy. It was a feeling that I cannot put into words because it was so powerful. It emanated a strong presence. It just emanated something that was otherworldly that was there.
Now, what about the footprints? Did you take pictures? And did you mentioned casts? You were going to do some castings?
Yes, Chad Warren, he's gone out there, and this is the strange thing about him going out to this site. He went out there and took these castings, and he actually was just putting them together to post online. He'll be doing a follow-up to this, and actually what's very interesting, like I said, he ran into a jogger that was just in the area, happened to be in the area that day, that has taken extreme interest in the site now, and he was saying how he sees UFOs come right over the site. So, I mean, is it a coincidence that the jogger was in the area at that exact time of the day when Chad was there? I almost think that the extraterrestrials wanted to be found. They wanted the cast to be made of their footprints. They wanted the sighting to be there. I mean, we have multiple witnesses and people coming forward. And I think we're going to see more and more stuff like this because it's sort of like a dripping of disclosure. I mean, I think ETs want us to know they're there.
Now, and you said one of the Fadernauts reached out to you too as well, Jason.
Yeah, Jason was there. You know, this guy that came to the site. I mean, he's a listener of Coast to Coast, and you know, what you do, Fade to Black, and everything. So, I mean, this is incredible to me.
Okay, Jason, I want you to call in Thursday night on Fader Night and tell us your side and what what you experienced up there too as well. And if the three girls are listening, I would love to hear from you. My email is there and available, and you can reach out to myself or Rita, and I would like to talk to you. This is what we're talking about now, multiple witnesses that didn't know each other, where this is now cross-referencing into the same situation, and we have Jason too. This is, wow, Johnny, well done, man. And it's...
Thank you.
It is all connected. You know, you start to peel this back a little bit, and everything just seems to connect into itself.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I don't even have to look for clues these days. They just pop into your lap. The right people, the right information just comes to you, and I guess that's what happens when we immerse ourselves into this world, like you do, like the Fadernauts do. You just have these mysterious things just happen to you.
Let's we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to break this story also here on Fade to Black. I don't even know if it's going to be as cool as what you just described to us in the park. That's pretty amazing. But we're going to talk about the possibility of a new Area 51. So we'll do that when we come back. Our guest tonight, Jonny Enoch. I do want to remind everybody, I don't have the phone lines open. I don't know why everybody's calling in. But we will get to phones possibly later on tonight. But tomorrow night, Patrick Wood is going to be here. Thursday night's another Fader night. But tonight, it's Jonny Enoch. It's Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Johnny, what's your Twitter?
My Twitter is Jonny Enoch.
There you go. No H. I'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Reclaim your active lifestyle with Angioprim. Angioprim is the original liquid oral chelation supplement. Chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in your veins and arteries that can cause blockages. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com. Talk to a trained consultant by calling Angioprim toll-free 877-882-7221.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hey, it's Grace. Can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Great show tonight. Jonny Enoch is here. Finally, first-time guest. What a great encounter. The park encounter, there's something there. There's something there. I can't wait for the rest of the evidence to come in and Chad with the cast, and I want to see the images. Hoof prints. Wow. Okay.
We need Chad to call in. We need to get him to call in and send you the images, too.
Yeah. Chad, he's probably listening. We'll get to that. We'll open up the phone lines in a bit, and we'll do that. I'm very interested in this. And Jason, I know so many Jasons. I don't know which one this is, but this is things are meant to happen for a reason. You know, the three girls approaching Derek, your son, Jason, right? We've got trace evidence. We've got photographs. We've got multiple witness testimony here. This is a pretty strong case. Very well done, Johnny. Now let's talk about this new Area 51. Okay, where's it located?
Okay, now to get into this, we have to build up the story about where the information came from. So it's actually, I'll put this out there to you, is that we have underground bases all over the place. I mean, this has been since ancient times, Jimmy. As you know, I mean, at one point on our Earth, there were great cataclysms some 12,000 years ago. Hence, when we went on from we left the last ice age of the Pleistocene into the Holocene, when the Earth shifted 23.5 degrees. And what happened is that, of course, there was a great shift where the North Pole and South Pole was, or Antarctica. Those were very different places, as you know. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the Earth, the Earth was unlivable, and it wasn't a very great place. And so a lot of the ancient civilizations had to go underground. We hear about Agartha and Shambhala and all these amazing places in the Himalayan mountains. So this idea that we've had a honeycomb Earth all over the world is a very interesting one. And, these networks, these underground networks go all over the world. And so when I started looking at this particular case, I was already interested in inner Earth civilizations like Cappadocia and other places like that, because I'm always fascinated by ancient civilizations. But my friend Ash Staunton, that's over in Colorado, he does a lot of ufology research and everything. He's always dropping really interesting information over to me, all sorts of incredible books and fascinating stuff. And he says to me, he goes, Johnny, I don't know why nobody's looked into this yet. He's like, why hasn't anyone looked into what's basically Canada's Area 51? And he said, have you ever read John B. Leith's book, Genesis for the Space Race, the Inner Earth and the Extraterrestrials?
Right.
And I'm like, no, I've never heard of that book. I mean, I got countless books that I'm constantly reading, but he's like, you got to check this out. He's like, no one will look at it. And this thing was put together over like in 1980. So I look at this thing, and I start flipping through this, and I'm absolutely amazed at the information, Jimmy. The information says, and I don't know if you've heard this information before, but I can't believe people haven't looked at this. It says basically by John B. Leith that back into the 30s and 40s that there was that fear that we have of the Germans developing that round wing spacecraft. And I'm sure you're familiar with this, with the Hanubu sort of crafts and what we start to learn about with the secret space program and the Germans. I mean, Gaia's Cosmic Disclosures talked about this. Anthropologist Robert Seppers talked about this in his work. So many people have gotten interest in the secret space program recently that, we're all wondering, what was left of it? Where did that go? Where did it develop into? Well, apparently it was a very serious threat. They were very worried about this. So then President of the United States of America, Franklin D. Roosevelt, he contacts Canada and says, okay, we need to develop a treaty. We need a very secret place where we can reverse engineer these crafts, do experiments. So he says to Mackenzie King, the then Prime Minister of Canada, we need to come up with something where we can develop one of these fortresses. So obviously a lot of research went into this, and they started to look at this very seriously. And according to Leith, going back into somewhere around 1936, they start to look at this impenetrable inland hideout in the west coast of British Columbia. And it was so remote, without any road entry, that not even a bird can enter into this wild refuge where they could hide out beyond radar, anything, and start doing all kinds of experiments and working with reverse engineering these crafts. Well, according to the story, the extraterrestrials actually started to do an exchange program, and they were digging, into the mountains with hard rock miners. They were developing electric two-track railway systems, and they basically had this impenetrable fortress, which is really, really quite incredible. And so I had this information, but I thought, what the heck am I going to do with this? No one says where the facilities are or anything, so I began my search. I started to talk to people who were military personnel. I started to talk to people who were doing remote viewing, different ideas of where it could be. And my search kept leading me back into this area of Vancouver Island. And it's actually very interesting, Jimmy, because, what we've encountered now and what we've discovered from this talking to geologists and everything else, that there are these underground volcanic passageways and underground rivers that are all connected up into the mountains. They're connected everywhere, and they have a large labyrinth-like network that even goes under the oceanic areas. And it's really quite fascinating because even recently Emery Smith had been talking about that, where he was on Cosmic Disclosure talking about, all the various bases that we have out there from, the classical Area 51, Los Alamos. And he went even further on an episode of Cosmic Disclosure to say that there was a base in Whidbey Island and an underground facility in British Columbia, Canada, which I thought was fascinating that he mentioned that. So what's really interesting about this also is that when I've been out there with Jordan Maxwell on our various road trips, when you go visit Area 51, you go to Rachel, Nevada by Groom Lake, and you go over to the Little Alien Inn. Have you ever been to Little Alien Inn?
Believe it or not, it's right down the road, in Las Vegas, and I have not done the road trip.
Oh, you got to do it, Jim. You're going to love
excuse.
it. The pie and the coffee there is fantastic. You're a coffee guy like me.
Yeah.
They have great coffee, and you'll actually have an incredible experience if you go there. Well, one thing that Jordan taught me, and you got to try this when you go there, Jimmy. You absolutely have to do this. Everybody that goes there should try this. Jordan said to me, Johnny, you got to walk across the street and walk directly across the street of the Little Alien Inn and put your ear up to the telephone pole. And you know what you'll hear? You'll hear a commotion under the ground, things moving like a railway track system. That's because there's a railway track system that connects all these underground bases from Los Alamos and everywhere else. And it's a very elaborate network, from what I've been told, that goes under these places.
Did you do it?
I wish I could get a pass. Someone should give me a pass. I'll go down there. So.
You didn't go put your ear on the telephone pole?
Yes, I did. I did hear it. I heard it when I put my ear up to it, and I could hear it. And I go, oh my God, that's incredible. But
wow.
I didn't get to ride the railway system like some have been able to. I wish I could. But I'll tell you this, Jimmy. What we started to discover, in my search, I found some gifted people that were doing remote viewing, and one in particular that I've been doing this research with, but I can't say the name yet. You'll see when the research comes out, the videos and the articles and the book that I'm putting out about this with Ash Staunton about Canada's Area 51. You'll see that he was starting to have remote viewing, images that were coming in of these sites. And I was actually visiting Vancouver Island with my wife recently, and we went up and met with him, this fellow that was doing incredible remote viewings. And he said to me, I have something that's going to blow your mind. And I said, really? He said, you're not going to believe this, but because he does have military contacts, not only with our local military, but some intelligence agencies, he says, I can get you in the next day. It's going to be dangerous. And there's a security clearance process for one of these underground facilities. It goes under, it's military, it's blurred off of Google Maps, okay? And I thought to myself, well, this is very interesting. I don't know where this is going to lead, but let's take a look at this. Let's see what else is there. So we stay an extra day out in this particular area, way out in the middle of nowhere in this central area of Vancouver Island. And when we get there, we get up at 6 a.m. in the morning the next day, and it's painful at that time, Jimmy. You need the strong coffee at that time of the morning. And we get up there, and I know you can relate. We get out there, and we meet his contact, and the guy says, come on, you got to go now. We get through all these security gate clearances, and we go up in the middle of nowhere. There's a bank of giant satellites that are everywhere.
Okay, now let's get some of these images posted. The first one I want to post is the no trespassing, the gate.
Yes.
Let's do that one first. Rita, is Rita with us? Okay, I'm not sure if she's. I see. I'm in the bunker. So let me here. I'm just going to go the Jonny Enoch gate. we'll call it that, and this will be image number 1. Okay, so continue. I'm posting the picture of the gate.
So we go through this gate, and I tell you, there was a lot of suspense involved with this, Jimmy, because it looked like the kind of place that if you made the wrong move, you were getting shot. And that was it. It was under a lot of security. There was these banks of satellites nearby, and it was absolutely mysterious. This is in the middle of nowhere, and we move through these gates, and we go to a facility where there's now, scientists there and people looking at various experiments. And what we actually learned about the particular facility we were in that we went to is that there are not only these portal holes that were in the ground for the underground facility that were filled in, but there's a very mysterious building there. And this building that's there has this strange siding, which I also sent you a picture of.
Right.
And the siding is very particular. It's an acoustic kind of sound resistant siding. And from what I've been told now, that if you go to New York over to Montauk, especially when we look at the incredible work of Preston Nichols and Peter Moon, you see that this is the same siding that we start to see from the Montauk facility. And the siding that we see is connected to these underground entrances that were there when the military had this base. And there's still partial experimental shell companies that are connected to the satellites and military involvement. It's a very mysterious site, I tell you. When we were looking at this site, in this site, the entire ground of this area is in a dome-like structure, and we had a very peculiar set of conversations with the people that were there, that worked there, that they said that they couldn't be on camera to talk to us. They started to tell us very interesting stories. They said, first of all, that the mining and geology report said the entire ground leading up into the mountain of this facility was loaded with gold, and there was rivers underneath it. They also started to tell us that at this particular facility, which, by the way, we believe is the Montauk type of extension of this Canada's Area 51, that at this particular facility, they said there's weird noises underground, and there is a humming sound that comes out at night with energy and strange things that come through the walls. And none of the people that do this scientific research there, none of them feel comfortable being there alone at night. They said it's absolutely mysterious. When we've talked to people, Jimmy, and it's unbelievable. We've had people come forth on this case on this particular site. They say that we've heard different stories in this area that are so strange. There is a scientist that said that they used to work there in the 70s. It said there were otherworldly things going on underground. Something bad happened there, and it had to be shut down and filled into the underground entrances. And we've also heard from a pizza delivery guy that was delivering up to 10 pizzas at a time to the satellite facility portion of it, that said they had to go down 2 stories in the 1970s and go through a military clearance to deliver it 2 stories down to bring the pizzas there, and way out in the middle of nowhere. And from what we've now gathered, that this particular site, from what we heard, had some kind of a portal underneath it, and there was potentially extraterrestrial and human cooperation, but something not so good came through that portal. And that's about as far as I can take it at this point. I can tell you that something not so good came through that portal, and not a lot of people survived it. When we were there at this facility, Jimmy, the one guy, when he was there, one of the head guys, I was reading him out the description from John B. Lee's book about the hard rock miners going into the mountains. He pointed and he goes, "Oh my God, the facilities on the other side of the mountains there, the underground facility to that." And he says, "That, I believe, is still active." He said, "My grandfather used to work there, and that's where," he said, "they made the bells when you think of the German bell craft." And he said that thing is even more secure, and there's still activity going on there. So this underground cooperation with extraterrestrials is not only connected to these areas, but here's the kicker, Jimmy. Here's the one last big piece of the puzzle. Remember, I was telling you that there's a volcanic network that connects all these together, and underground riverways and passageways that have been built up.
Right.
What we've now mapped out and believe that this is the biggest missing piece to ufology, even to James Gillian's ESETI Ranch, because underneath Mount Adams, Mount Baker, all these mountains, we have these underground passageways, which we believe is a UFO highway. And we believe there's a map connected to ufology, and it gets even bigger and even stranger the further we go down this rabbit hole.
Now, I've just posted, you're right about that, Shasta too as well, the lava tubes at Shasta, very well documented. The field of radar dishes, I've got this up here now, and it is in Twitter. So as you guys were walking around this facility, this is an active facility.
Yes, it's partially. So what's happened is that the satellite portion of it is sectioned off, and then the base portion of it is now being used for highly compartmentalized scientific research that's still highly secure and requires a clearance. These places are blurred off of Google Maps. It's highly secure. It's still hard to get into. And what's very interesting is that both these facilities have underground entrances, and they're connected into other areas with underground tunnels. Most of the activities all underground.
Right.
So the satellites are very similar to even what we see over in the Montauk case.
Yeah, very
whether they're
similar.
used for scrambling or some kind of some sort of communication. It's very strange. And as one of the scientific researcher fellows that was there said, he said, when you look at how the mountains are positioned around this place, he says everything that comes and goes out of this place is outside of radar. He said nothing is showing up on radar. He said
what does he mean by saying that?
He said that you can't pick up anything that's aircraft, anything aerial that's going around in and out of this mountainous valley that's surrounding this place.
Did he indicate? Now, okay, hold on for a second. I want to firmly understand what you are suggesting here. As you were walking around this facility and you were able to take these pictures, and the pictures are incredible. We'll get to the concrete here in a second. I've got that image too. It might be after the break. That you were able to talk to employees and technicians and scientists that were on the grounds. You were able to actually do this.
Yes, it was unbelievable. It was so surreal, Jimmy. I mean, I couldn't believe that this was happening, and I couldn't believe what they were saying. And to me, it's incredible that even the locals around this place are talking about black-eyed children showing up, UFOs, strange activity. I mean, they are afraid to be in these areas at night. There's some of the staff that was at this place that I was able to talk to. I was able to get some audio that we would be potentially using coming up in a documentary piece about it. And to me, it was so strange that no one's ever talked about this. I mean, this knowledge that we've had these underground facilities and experiments and things going on have been there for some time. But here's something else I want to add to the story that adds even a stranger twist to this. There was another fellow that my contact, who I can't name at this moment, that my contact had encountered. And this fellow was very seriously researching chemtrails and things of that nature in this area. And he was doing this on the dark web. And he found documents on the dark web that suggested that the chemtrails were not for weather changing. They weren't for any other means except to hide the coming and going of experimental and other craft coming and going from these particular areas. And to me, when I hear, they're hiding, coming and going of craft, and that's what they were doing with these chemtrail spraying, I think it's fascinating. Furthermore, this fellow said that the day after he was doing this search and he was looking up this information on the dark web, he woke up the next day and he went over to his vehicle and there was an American $1 bill on the windshield wiper of his vehicle that said "Stop searching" written on it. And so he said that was sort of an indicator that maybe he better watch what he's doing.
Is there an airstrip at this facility as well?
Not that I could see. There might be one on the other side. This is a very wide open, mountainous area. It's so strange that this underground facility would have such a huge entrance. It's possible that they were coming and going into any of the wide open spaces that are nestled into these mountains.
Pretty incredible. Okay, let's get to, now you mentioned, the underground parts of this and that you found some concrete covers. Now, I've got this picture here. Let's get this up and describe what is in this particular image.
This image here is what used to be the breathing holes, we've been told by one of the managers of the facility. He said that before this was filled in, and they filled in the underground areas to this, which, by the way, they still hear a humming sound underneath, which tells me that whatever was underneath there, that scared the hell out of them, and they didn't fully dismantle it. So they filled it in with concrete for the breathing ports, which is where that concrete is. And they used all kinds of ways to secure the entrances and bring that together. And actually, the fellow that is connected to the areas where they're doing the research there, there was a discussion about the possibility of how much money it would take from where they're leasing it from these other groups, how much money it would take to take an excavator and go down into that area. And we're actually kind of thinking that based on the information that we've had of what's down below there, why they sealed that in, that what could be under there, maybe dead extraterrestrial bodies, maybe something bad happened that we've been told that's very similar to Dulce, New Mexico. I don't know. But it sounds very curious.
How big is this square that we're looking at?
Oh, geez. I would say that it's about the size of a regular cinder block sort of thing that you look at. It's just sitting in the ground. There's several of them lining around the property from where they used to be. Apparently, he was saying these were the breathing holes of the underground base.
Right.
And he said you'd go into that building, that strange siding I showed you, to enter and go down in where the military personnel would show up, and they would enter down into there. And Jimmy, I know that people look at remote viewing data differently, but we've asked multiple remote viewers, including my contact there, and they all came up independently with replicable results that they said that there was a large underground facility with several rooms and scientists working under this thing, and there were ETs walking amongst them doing Montauk-like experiments. And I know this might sound strange for some, but they say that that there was possibly something reptilian-like or something like that may have come through at some point that kind of disrupted something, which is very interesting to me.
Something is going on, and now Vancouver Island is large. Is it possible for us to see where this facility may be on Vancouver Island?
I can't give away the exact location or the proximities of it yet, but I can tell you this. Two things I'll tell you. It's in central Vancouver Island area, in a mountainous area. And I can also tell you this, that it's about 500 acres underground.
Wow. Very well done, Johnny. I mean, well done. Now, I'll say, and you said that this is about the size of a cinder block, so about a foot by, maybe 16 inches by 16 inches.
Yes, thank you.
So.
That's an accurate description.
I have been around a lot of underground facilities. I lived next to them and military installations. And I can tell you that, I have walked across, giant fields and then come across an air vent sticking out in the middle of, it's by itself in the middle of the grass. An air vent, steel coming out of the ground. I could walk up to it and hear it, right? And I would say to myself, I'm 15 years old. Where is that going to, right? Because underneath my feet, right? Underneath my feet is a facility, and I could walk. This wasn't top secret in that if you're a military family, you're living around this stuff. You could, but I could walk up to these concrete doors and I would see cars, one or two cars parked outside of the doors. So somebody's parking, somebody's walking through the doors. It's a big concrete square on the side of a hill with the steel doors. I would never see anybody go in and out. And then up top, I could walk up as a kid and walk across these fields, and I would see the air vents sticking out of the ground. Ginormous facilities, and this reminds me of that. It would be about that size. Yeah. Well done. Okay, we need to take a break. We'll continue this when we come back. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Jonny Enoch. Well done, Johnny. I can't wait for the rest of this research, too, as well. You're going to be a busy man over the next couple of months. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal God, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com, dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Jonny Enoch. He is here. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Patrick Wood. He's back with us tomorrow night, Technocracy 2.0. And Thursday night's another Fader night, and it features Teresa Yannaris and her Divine Frequency on the airwaves right here on Fade to Black. Now, Jonny, what I find interesting here is the the collection of radar dishes, which it looks like there must be 50 or more, and some of them are very large. But you also went out to Arecibo. You went to Puerto Rico. And today with the Fast Radio Burst and SETI, Paul Allen, who just passed away, but his investment into this as well. China's got their new FAST radio telescope installation, which is even bigger than Arecibo. But this communication with ET is a reality today, and the Fast Radio Burst, for me, are some of the most interesting aspects of this. We're trying to chase this down. What are you finding out? And when you went to Arecibo, what did you discover?
That's a good question, Jimmy, because people always ask me, if ETs are real, they say, why haven't we heard from them yet? So I'm one of those guys that doesn't really like to wait for answers. I just want to hop on a plane and go find out what the hell is going on. Mm-hmm. So I hopped on a plane and I flew over to Puerto Rico. And, when I got there, it was very strange. I couldn't read any of the signs, and the maps didn't make any sense to me, and my GPS wasn't working at all. But I wanted to go up to Arecibo, which, as you know, is one of the largest radio telescopes in the world. And when I got there, I wanted to find out from their scientists if we had any sort of reply or sign from extraterrestrials. And because, we all know about the famous interstellar memo that was sent out by Carl Sagan on November 16th, 1974, and he beamed it at a globular star cluster, M13, which is like 25,000 light years away from the Earth. It's crazy. It had, as you know, you've probably seen it before, it has the binary code information about our DNA, the elements, our solar system, and our species. I'm sure you've seen it before, right?
Yes, of course. So
I said to them, listen, guys, I said, I'm your buddy. I'm not the public. You can tell me the truth. I'm not going to tell anybody. Of course I would. But, I said, tell me, have we heard anything? Because I also saw back in like 2002, there was this strange crop formation by the Chilbolton radio telescope there in Hampshire, UK, that looked like they had received a reply. It had sort of like this extra strand of DNA and like a gray looking ET in a different solar system. But I mean, they said the same thing as everyone else said to me. Sorry, it's just a hoax. But actually, I think one of the greatest, ways that we can look at this is what Dr. Michio Kaku said. Kaku said that the reason we haven't been contacted is we've only been searching about 100 light years away from the Earth for a signal. But our galaxy, in perspective, Jimmy, as you know, is about 100,000 light years across. And galaxies are tens of millions of light years away. So we've really only been looking in this little tiny corner and really just looking at a small area, which is the hydrogen frequency. So the next step, of course, is looking at laser, and then in a broadband style frequency like we do with our internet right now, which would be like breaking up everything into little small packets and fragments and putting them across like we would use email, like an advanced civilization would do. But actually, what I think, Jimmy, I think how extraterrestrial communication works is much how when we look at the idea of what we get with our aura or our quantum consciousness, which I think is one of the most exciting sciences right now when we talk about consciousness, that helps us understand near-death experiences, which has been looked at over by Professor Stuart Hameroff at the University of Tucson and Sir Roger Penrose. They look at the idea that when you break down an atom, you smash an atom, these minute particles, you find that there's an electron whizzing around the nucleus. And when you smash that and you go below that, you find it has subatomic particles, which have all these funny sounding names like quarks, neutrinos, hadrons, leptons, and gluons, and everything else, right? So what's fascinating about this is that how this relates to our consciousness and who we are is that when you look at that, that electron could be on the other side of our universe, but it's all held together through quantum cohesion or like a quantum entanglement or a superpositioning. And we have an IP address. Consciousness has an IP address. And I believe that's actually how extraterrestrial communication works. I believe it's on a quantum level. And I think that's why people are getting communicated to the way that they are through these metamorphic and telepathic messages.
What did the technicians at Arecibo say to that?
They smirked. I had a couple of guys that were, pro extraterrestrial that were kind of on my side. But for the most part, they have to remain objective and skeptical and say, we haven't really had anything that we can discuss with you. But I'm certain, as I know you're probably aware, that if there was something of any significance, that they probably wouldn't be talking about it on the nightly news.
What was their knowledge of the UFO subject like?
They had there were some of the guys there that had some brief knowledge about, sightings that would have been around Puerto Rico in particular, because they do have sightings in those areas. You can look them up. In fact, when I was out there, there was a gentleman trying to connect with me that was a part of a UFO research group that was there. So they do have a lot of sightings. But at the actual facility itself, they keep it very, pragmatic and scientific, of course, and they have a hard line stance. We don't want to discuss. They don't really want to go into the whole UFO subject.
And when we talk about the history of UFOs, certainly the Caribbean and what has been going on in Puerto Rico and the lake there and chupacabras, we have all of that. But your research also goes around the world with the extraterrestrial subject tied into ancient history as well. And it's one of the things that I'm interested in most. What have you been finding out?
Well, what's interesting to me is that when we go into Egypt, which, by the way, as you mentioned at the beginning of the show, where I'm about to do the Ancient Mysteries tour of Egypt, going there with my friend Muhammad Ibrahim, and we're looking at all kinds of strange and fascinating subjects like this and examining extraterrestrials and the pre-dynastic Egyptians, which I'm sure that you're aware of. Who were the pre-dynastic Egyptians that the later dynastic Egyptians, and by the way, I want to say that you did an incredible interview with Stephen Mailer. Also Stephen Mailer is a friend of mine. That when talking about the cycles of Egypt, it's like layers of an onion that you go down deeper and deeper. That everyone that came along, they wanted to become Egyptians. But when you go back to the oldest groups, we say, who were the gods of ancient Egypt, Jimmy? Well, Plutarch told us that the gods of ancient Egypt were the antediluvian. That's the pre-flood or pre-cataclysmic kings who were deified or made into gods after death. Mm-hmm. So then we got to start asking, well, who were these antediluvian kings? Who were these gods? We know the progenitor of ancient Egypt was actually Osiris. One of them, when we go back to Ptah and the demiurges, but when we look at Osiris, he is a giant with an elongated skull. So do we actually have evidence in ancient Egypt of rulers like this? Well, if you go into the Cairo Museum, I was very surprised to learn when I walked into this Cairo Museum that we find 15 to 25 foot sarcophagi, and it says enormous coffin. And when you actually start to ask questions and you say, okay, where are the bodies from these enormous coffins? It's very interesting what they do. They shrug their shoulders and we say, we don't know. Is it in the basement? Where did they hide them? And actually, there's a very interesting story we have from 1001 Nights from the Caleb al-Mahmoud about, that's from the Arabian Nights, about the giants that built the pyramids and hid treasures that were guarded by demons and monsters. And the Caliph was actually looking for this treasure, which is why we have that entrance, the story for the Great Pyramid where the entrance came from. So there's all kinds of mysterious stories. Jimmy, let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen the famous light bulb glyph that we find at Hathor's temple in Dendara? Have you ever seen the light bulb glyph?
Of course. In Jason Martell's living room in his home, he's got one.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You walk in and it's right there. That's the Dendera light bulb. But when you see it constructed, okay, the glyph itself, the carving itself is cool. It's a 3D relief, and that's one thing. But when you see it built, right, an actual scale model of it, then you really get your mind wrapped around it. It's a light bulb. I mean, I don't think it can be mistaken for anything else.
It is. It's very evident what it is. But when you look at it, I want you to look at it in a new light from now on. When you get done this conversation, or if you want to look it up now, everyone wants to look it up on Google. I want you to pay attention to who's holding up the light bulb that has the serpentine energy in it, by the way. And the serpentine energy is very interesting. That's a very interesting clue that we see. It's a giant holding up the light bulb for smaller humans. This could be said by some, were these the pre-dynastic Egyptians holding up the serpentine energy that was given to the dynastic Egyptians? And remember, this is in the crypts. This was not available for the regular people to see. This is for the priestcraft. These were the great secrets that were hidden there, secret knowledge. So this is a very, very interesting clue of what we're starting to see there.
How so? How so? Are you talking about the representation of the size?
Yes, well, we're looking at actual giants holding that up. And we find lots of depictions, lots of reliefs in Egypt, Jimmy, that we find of actual giants. And we see them side by side. We see this depiction. So we find this as sort of an incredible clue there that's given to us, a puzzle piece.
Yeah, I've always noticed that. I don't think, I could be wrong, and Egyptologists will tell you that I'm wrong, but I don't ever really see representation. Everything is to scale. Everything is correct. The Egyptians took great care in the artwork and the way that they represented people. And to have short people here with giant people here in the same, why would they make that kind of mistake? Right?
That's right. You know, another important clue that we were talking about with Osiris is that Osiris is depicted as having an elongated head. And so is Dagon. When we go back into ancient Babylonia or the ancient Chaldean lore, we learn about the fish god with the fish hat, Dagon, or some called him Nimrod, some called him Oannes, or Sidon because he taught them agriculture. He came to a very primitive people who couldn't even make fire. He came to their shores and he gave them knowledge and he gave them understanding of all sorts of divine concepts. And that's why that the Pope wears that mitre, that kind of fish hat on his head, because he's modeling it after Dagon. Well, this was one of the elongated rulers. And we find that people all over the world were mimicking this class of elongated rulers. And even people will make all sorts of theories about Akhenaten, and they'll say, oh, Akhenaten must have had an elongated head. Well, actually, I believe that Akhenaten was one of those that was copying that. His depictions in the Cairo Museum that you find of him and his family, they're all depicted with the elongated heads. Well, he's actually depicted as a hermaphrodite, as the universal man of all the universal man depictions. And we know from actually examining Amenhotep III, his father had quite a regular head. Tutankhamun, his son, had a regular head. So why did he want to look like this ruling class of divine beings, whoever these beings on earth that were so advanced that perhaps these were the gods? These were the ones helping to seed humanity.
I've always thought that's a very interesting take, but I've often thought that Akhenaten was also singular. You know, maybe he was E.T.
It's entirely possible, because I don't think the ETs have ever left this planet, and there's been a hidden hand, Jimmy, since the beginning. And I'm one of those people that you can call an Atlantean believer. I believe in Atlantis, and I believe Egypt was an extension of Atlantis, very much so. I believe it was a very real thing. But with Akhenaten, we find all sorts of interesting clues about him, but I will tell you this. If you look up in the Berlin Museum, there is an actual bust of Akhenaten. And Stephen Mailer famously put this bust on the front of his book, From Light to Darkness. And you can actually see the Akhenaten bust from his personal sculptors, and it looks nothing like the one that you actually see that he did for that artistic portrayal. So it's very peculiar. But as you know, if you followed Brian Forrester's incredible work and the test results that came out that they did with L.A. Marzulli, who raised $100,000 to do some DNA testing, when they looked over at the Paracas skulls, they found very interesting results. Have you seen those results?
Absolutely, I have. I've had them all on the show, and then I've discussed it with them at length.
It's incredible. They found out, as you know, that these skulls in Paracas were 25% larger and 60% heavier than conventional human skulls. And what I thought was just fascinating about this is that when they did the DNA testing, they found that they would have had blonde to lightish hair. They were from like the haplogroup UTE1. And that created a big problem for academia, because traditionally we're told that the Native Americans and the Inca and everyone else like that came from haplogroups A, B, C, D, and X, which, they would have crossed the Bering Land Bridge or the Bering Land Strait. So here we have this group of elongated skull rulers that were in these areas, very much connected to the Egyptians, that very much had the serpentine mysteries all through their iconography and everything else, and this pattern going around the world. And I thought it was fascinating, the areas that we connect them in, from the northern Black Sea, Crimea, and the Scandinavian areas. Because, Jimmy, I know you've been following the stories about Vimanas in flying machines, right?
Of course.
When we look at the stories of Vimanas, we learn about them from, the epic poem of India, the Ramayana, and the summation of that is in the Mahabharata, and of course in the Samarangana Sutradhara. We start to learn about these, in the Vedantic writings, about these Vimanas and flying machines that are exuding lightning bolts and strange conquests, and this all comes out of the ancient areas of India. So what I believe happened after these last cataclysmic things on Earth is that the Aryans and these other groups, when we connected to these ancient civilizations, they came down into northern India, down into the Indo-Gangetic plains of the Indo-Ganges. They mixed with the Dravidian peoples. We see a movement over into Asia Minor and then down into northern Africa, which became Egypt. And even when you start to look at their movements with the Persians, we have this idea with ancient flying machines, was Zarathustra, the prophet that encountered Ahura Mazda, which is when you look at the man with the flying disc that came down to them, which is why you see the Mazda car having that symbol that looks like the man with the flying disc. This story is ancient. And whoever these ancient progenitors were, we see the patterns of where they were seeding civilization.
Well, then how does Göbekli Tepe come into the mix then?
Göbekli Tepe is definitely a part of the mix. I mean, here we have this very ancient site, and I think Graham Hancock has really touched down on this with Magicians of the Gods and said it beautifully, like looking at the Younger Dryas cataclysm and why, a migration path would have been so important, going into these areas. What I felt was very interesting with Göbekli Tepe, and this is what's always fascinated me about talking about this with anthropologists, is that when you see, for example, did you follow that discovery that they made with the Denisovans that were up in that cave around 2008 that was up in Siberia?
Yes.
Okay, so what's fascinating about that is that there we have Denisovan DNA that they found of these very, these incredible tool makers that we connect to the Asiatic peoples. And we find that the people in Tibet can survive at high altitudes because they had Denisovan DNA. And a lot of Native American populations had Denisovan DNA. And so what's fascinating to me is that they also possess a totemical culture when you see these totem poles and house poles. Well, you actually find totem poles, ancient totem poles in those areas when you look over at Göbekli Tepe, when you look them up. And when you go in these fascinating areas across Turkey, and next to Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Ephesus is probably one of the other greatest areas to look at archaeologically over by Kushadasi there. And I think that these Göbekli Tepe is just one of the most fascinating pieces of the puzzle.
Well, it's also the age, and what
yes.
For me, I look at things a little bit more directly, Johnny, in that when we just look at the hard dating and we look at the gap between Giza, which is 7,000 years, and Göbekli Tepe. And Göbekli Tepe is north, and it's in the Armenian highlands. We say Turkey. Turkey
yes.
is a modern a modern name for that area. It was the Armenian Highlands for forever throughout ancient history. So, but we say Turkey for popular culture today. But
yes,
but that was 7,000 years prior to Giza, and it's also way north of Giza. So when we look at the migration of intelligence, I'm not so sure that it came from what the professional academics are going to tell you, that it came from Southern Africa or the migration came from India. Wherever, when you start to look at, Göbekli Tepe is way north and it's much, much earlier, which says to me that it could be, and you just mentioned Siberia. It's possible that the land bridge in Siberia, that the migration actually came from the opposite direction, and the intelligence came from there. And then I talk way too much. I'm going to throw this back over to you. Lately, the recap structure has been brought up. The Eye of Africa over in Mauritania is possibly being Atlantis. And that's a very interesting thing to throw into all of this, because of the way that not only Plato, but the script in Edfu talks about Atlantis and the flood and the islands and the gods of ancient Egypt. And then you have Rekat there, and you have Göbekli Tepe to the north. So it all says to me that the flood myths and the intelligence predated Egypt and migrated from these other areas. And it's just the hard data. It's the hard data that says this has actually happened.
Now, I have seen that with talking about the Eye of Africa, and it's a fascinating sight, but I just think that maybe the sea levels are a little off for, something a little too high, and to where we would see a location for Atlantis. And I know a lot of friends of mine are talking about that, and they're very excited to say, hey, this is Atlantis. But I'm more of a traditionalist, Jimmy. I tend to look at Atlantis that, in the way that we start to see that Ignatius Donnelly was talking about it, or Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, or Manly P. Hall. They would see it more down the Atlantic Ridge. And the reason for that is when we go back into the Atlantis story, that Plato learns from his uncle Critias, from his great-great-grandfather Solon, who travels to Egypt, talks to Sanchis of Sais, the high priest, and he says, silly, silly Solon, you Greeks are like children to us. You think you've got this great flood story. Well, there's been many floods and many destructions, many civilizations on this earth that have been wiped out. But we have these very curious descriptions, Jimmy, that when we see that where the pillars of Hercules were, that this could be the Rock of Gibraltar. We see the Azore and the Canary Islands, those could be the mountaintops. And you see there's all over the Azorean Islands, there's all these pyramids. And a very strange migration path connected over to the Basque people, who have a strange history and an idea that they came over from Atlantica, and the language is undecipherable by linguists to say that it's so unique. And what's very strange about Göbekli Tepe is that when I look at these civilizations and visitors like Dagon, when I look at visitors like Osiris, or even Quetzalcoatl or Kukulkan, or someone that we hear about like the idea of Viracocha or Amaru over in Peru, where America gets her name from, Amaruca, land of the plumed serpent, we get these ancient missionaries who are like Atlantean missionaries who were seeding civilization. And this is where I believe a lot of our ancient religions and traditions and the mysteries were seeded from. There was a hidden hand that tried to preserve the knowledge that was lost due to a great cataclysmic destruction on this earth. And actually, Jimmy, I don't know how much time we have, but I would love to tell you about something that unraveled for me with why these ancient sites that you just mentioned are so important. Do we have a couple minutes?
Well, actually, then we'll just go ahead and go into a little overtime. How's that? Okay,
that sounds good to me.
Yeah, we'll take a commercial break right here, and then we'll come back and we'll continue this. And yeah, you know what? Let's just go ahead and do that now. We'll take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Jonny Enoch, and we're just going to do some overtime for all of you Fadernauts. Göbekli Tepe, it's arrived. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal God on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com, dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from River Moon. Just click on the River Moon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Doing a little overtime. Go Beckley Teppy. Jonny Enoch is here. Hey, Johnny. I don't know if you're watching Twitter, man, but it's on fire tonight. It's pretty good stuff. Mark Toronto over in Australia just said, "You're a machine." You're a machine.
I love it.
Okay, so staying on this now, judging from the way this conversation has evolved tonight and where we are right now, for you to go, "Hey, I've got something else." Well, okay, I'm going to stop the presses right there and say, "What's up? What have you got?"
Okay. So I had this giant aha moment, Jimmy, because I spend a lot of time wandering through the museums around Europe. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm a museum and book nerd by nature.
Right.
So I'm wandering through the museums, and as I'm going through the British Museum, I see above the Assyrian wing, there's a little bee on the wall. And I see those guys on the walls. They have the bags. You ever seen the men with the man bags? And people have all kinds of theories when they look at them.
I was going to bring that up.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I was going to bring that up earlier. We've discussed that many times on this. I see it everywhere. The purses.
Exactly. I did a video on this called Men with Bags. And so it's funny about that when you see this and you ask the anthropologists there at the museum, what are they holding? And they'll tell you, well, they're holding a bag full of pollen. These are the ancient pollinators. And when they're holding the pollen, they're holding the date palm or the date from the date palm in their hands, and they're pollinating. And you could say, well, was this because after the cataclysm that, you know, they had to pollinate things? Because we know that connected to them and connected to everyone else, the bee was very important, Jimmy. The bee and pollen. In fact, we know the great Christian king Charlemagne that had the symbol of the bee, which was very important there. We see that there was the iconography of the bee with, even when you look at the headdress of the king in Egypt, it looks like a bee. When you look around the headdress, and the first dynastic kings, their titles, including in Babylonian times, were all the beekeepers. That's what they were called. And so this was a very sacred role. In fact, in Freemasonry, the bee is very sacred. And when Adam Weishaupt was first starting the Illuminati on May 1st, 1776, which, by the way, here's a fun fact for your listeners, Jimmy. Jordan Maxwell tells me that's actually where the name Area 51 is connected to. 0501, May Day, which is also May Day is the same birthday as the Bavarian Illuminati, which is very interesting. The Adam Weishaupt was originally going to call the Illuminati the Beekeepers, but I think the name Illuminati sounds way more badass.
Yeah, it does. It certainly does.
Definitely. So interestingly enough, we have this bee connection to these ancient progenitors, the gods who are winged gods instructing the Assyrians on what to do with these bags, and who were these beekeepers. And you even mentioned Göbekli Tepe. Well, it doesn't matter where we look around the world. The Phoenician Canaanites to the Etruscans, the Egyptians, wherever we look, we find this connection to these men with bags, which is very strange. So there I was talking to Brian Forrester, and Brian Forrester told me something that lit this light bulb up for me as well. He said, Johnny, did you know in Paracas, sorry, Jimmy, I got to give a plug to everybody because Brian and I got the tour coming up next year in November. You all can join us in Paracas and see the elongated skulls in person. He said, Johnny, did you know in Paracas there's a very strange grouping of date palms here, and nobody knows what to do with them. The Inca didn't know what to do with them. No one knows what to do with these date palms. Why were they in Paracas? Why did it move over there? And it's interesting that the date palm is connected over to beekeepers, and actually they use it for the honeybee in this particular area of putting this in for the honeycomb hives and everything. That's what they would do. So here we have this ancient group of missionaries going around the world and seeding the civilization. So I think when we look at Göbekli Tepe, we look at Egypt, we look over at these places in India, we're actually seeing the remnants of much more ancient civilizations. Whether you want to look back to the Hyperboreans, whether you want to look back to the Lemurians and the later transition of the Atlanteans, we see that in the Bible, Jimmy, in the book of Genesis, it says in the days of Peleg, the continents had not been divided yet. So we have this idea that maybe we're looking at Pangea, Maybe we're looking at a super Earth. And later on, we see a global maritime civilization that maybe we're not looking at such a localized group, but these ancient civilizations came in cycles.
Well, the date palm aspect of this, when it comes to Peru, there's a bunch of different connections there, but there was no date palm there. The date palm came from the Mediterranean. So how did it?
That's very interesting. So who brought it there?
That's right.
And are they connected to these beekeepers? Are they connected to these ancient mysteries?
Now, the Nazca mummies, and there's going to be an update on this, I understand, coming up very soon. I'm excited about that. Maybe we can finally put some of this to bed. But the white powder on the Nazca mummies, that Maria, again, had date palm in it. And so there's a lot of different aspects to date palm and what they used it for, but it is from the Mediterranean. It's
That's a very interesting clue.
It's not. It has nothing to do with Peru. So how did it get from? We're talking about a transoceanic culture at year zero. That's getting a little puzzling to me. But the date palm aspect is interesting. Okay, let's get back to the man purses, though. I always thought that they were possibly the nuclear codes, right?
I've heard all kinds of theories. People have said maybe it's a generator pack. I've heard that they are the seeds of consciousness and they're ancient shamans. But according to the anthropologists, when we go over to the museum, they tell me that it represents pollen. And they said these were the ancient beekeepers. And so we might look at this in two ways, Jimmy, because we always have to look at the mysteries in different ways. We have to turn the lock 7 times, to quote Helena Blavatsky. Were they the pollinators of humanity, seeding consciousness, seeding our religions, or were they literally seeding the earth and pollinating because the earth had been devastated because of the cataclysms?
Well, you have Göbekli Tepe, you have the Anunnaki, you have the Mayans, these cultures with these very specifically designed purses or whatever they are, these handbags, that they look the same. The handles are the same. The size is the same in relation to the hand. That it's very interesting, and I think it's way beyond coincidence. And I hate to say that.
I do too, and I think it's great that we're looking at these things. It's great that we're all coming together and putting the puzzle pieces together. Because, Jimmy, I believe that when we start to look at this subject on a broader picture, it's not just infotainment anymore. And I think this is great what you and the Fadernauts are doing, what we're doing by discussing this, is that once we discover that extraterrestrials are real, then we can say, if we want to become greater citizens of the universe, first we have to become greater citizens of the world. And it shows us that we have to find more kindness and more compassion and more love for each other. And that's what I love what these subjects are doing.
Well, what do you think is actually going on in our skies? I use night vision. My little escapades out there with these large groups of people they're I don't want to use the word famous, but they've been talked about. But there's something going on, and I'm not the only one witnessing them. And when I witness them with a large group of people, from dozens to hundreds, nobody can tell us that we're imagining this. There is something going on in our skies right now. What do you think it is?
We are getting visited. We are constantly getting visited. We're being watched. We are not only part of a great zoological experiment, but there are extraterrestrials coming and going constantly. And, this is like a super highway. We're actually living in a very busy area. And from what I've been told and what seems to be and appears to be the evidence, that sometimes these so-called chemtrails are being used to cover up large events. We're hearing strange things in the news about telescopes being shut down for various strange conspiracies that don't make any sense. Why is this being suppressed? I don't think that we can hide disclosure forever. It's being dripped down to us, and soon it's going to be something that is in every coffee shop, every dinner table. We're going to be discussing it, and you and all the Fadernauts and everyone here is going to have to explain this to the people who have not done their homework.
What do you think ultimately is going to happen when disclosure, however it happens, it doesn't matter if it's a mass sighting or if it's by the President of the United States stepping up to a podium on live television, but when it happens, how is the world going to deal with it? Are they going to be okay? Are we going to be okay?
I think we're ready, Jimmy. I think that people have discussed this enough. We've seen enough Hollywood movies. We've gone through this, that I believe we're at a point in human consciousness that we can accept it. I mean, we're here to grow and evolve. That's why we're here. And I believe that that's the next step in our evolution, that once we go through that, we're going to see that there's a lot of changes that we're going to go through, but it's going to be great. There's going to be changes in the way we do things with our environment. We have to become greater caretakers of the world. We're going to have to open up discussions about our religions, our sciences. And I most certainly think that there are going to be technologies available that are going to be able to replicate food, that they're going to be able to dematerialize garbage, that they're going to be able to get rid of the fossil fuel industry. I think it's going to be incredible. And I think we just need to embrace it and move forward with that attitude.
It's one thing to discuss, Johnny, these subjects with members of our community. But when you go up and you discuss this with those that are not part of this community, that are just living their lives day to day, are they aware? Are they in touch, and are they okay with it?
I've talked to people who have a more skeptical or closed mind about these sort of subjects, and they're sort of those what you see is what you get sort of folks. And I think it's sort of like, once it comes out, once we see it, there's no getting around it. We're going to have to discuss it. I mean, right now they might, put up blocks and try to explain away these incidents and say, it's just a figment of your imagination, or so-and-so is crazy, or it's delusional behavior. But once we start to see it, it makes a lot of sense. When you look up at the sky at night, Jimmy, as I know you like to do, when you look up at the sky at night and you see all those stars and you see everything out there, it's not just for decoration. We're living in a vast universe that is filled with life. It's beaming with life.
And here we are, Johnny, with we spent a lot of time talking about Egypt tonight. But the things that are coming out of Egypt, combined with the UFO aspect and what is happening in mass media and disclosure, things are not what they seem to be and what we have been shown. And now coming out of Giza, we've got this, this new chamber that has been found at the Great Pyramid. There's new discoveries coming out of Egypt every single day. And it is now showing the world that if it appears that the Great Pyramid and everything else predates what we have been told all along, everything changes. Everybody on this planet now has to come to grips with a new reality. How are we going to deal with that? How is the media going to deal? How are the schools going to deal with it? And the books and Wikipedia is going to have to get rewritten, right?
I think that's a great point you're making, because a lot of people still believe that the Great Pyramid was a tomb. And when you visit there, you realize that once you enter the Great Pyramid and you walk inside it, and even if you go down into the depths of the king's, or into the subterranean chambers, or go into the queen's chamber, or witness and feel the energy in the king's chamber, you soon start to realize that it is totally crazy that this was a tomb for some Khufu or someone we're not even sure existed. It's a timeless sermon in the stone. It's the supreme edifice. It's the most magnificent of all the wonders of antiquity. And in fact, it is the one last standing, monument of the seven wonders of the world. And I'm very glad you mentioned that with the new chambers and there's the hidden shafts on the east side of the Great Pyramid where the entrances would be. I'm always taken back to that story we hear about Napoleon. Have you ever heard the time that Napoleon visited the Great Pyramid?
Absolutely. Changed his life. Would never talk about it.
That's right. He came out white as a ghost because he saw his Waterloo. He had an out-of-body experience. And actually, Jimmy, that's not so uncommon. When I've been up in the Great Pyramid, and we're going back up there with our group, we get a lot of private access time in there because of Muhammad. And when we go up in there, people have out-of-body experiences. The entire room fades away, and it just disappears. Once you're chanting an Om or you're into that state of consciousness, it shifts your consciousness like a interdimensional portal or energy. And I mean, when we look at Chris Dunn's Giza power plant hypotheses and all these ideas, we know that it's shifting and moving magnificent energy. So it's a technology.
Thank you so much. Now, okay, before I say goodnight, you've got a lot of stuff going on, and you're working on this new book. When is the Ancient Mysteries Tour of Egypt? When is that happening?
Thank you so much for asking. The Ancient Mysteries Tour of Egypt is happening on March 26th through April 8th, and people can sign up for that or find out more information at ancientmysterytours.com. You don't want to miss this. We're going into all sorts of exclusive places, exclusive permissions, doing the Nile cruise. We're going to go look at the Hiram Key and all kinds of strange things. It's if you're interested in Egypt, come with us.
And then, of course, Brian Forrester, you're going down to tour Peru and Bolivia.
Thank you for mentioning that also. Yes, that's November 4th through the 13th in 2019. And again, we're looking at all sorts of strange things there. Elongated skulls, the serpentine mysteries. And if people want to find out more information about that, you can check out our tour at hiddenincatours.com. We only have a few spaces left. It's going to be a great group. If you're interested in what we've been talking about tonight, these are the tours to come on.
Yeah, Brian's the best, and he will be wearing a Fade to Black shirt on that tour. I love it when he does that and he posts those pictures. When's this new book coming out?
I have the new book coming out. I have a couple new books coming out. Thanks again for asking that too, Jimmy. I have a book coming out about ancient consciousness technologies and the mysteries. That's coming out next year. And that's going to be exploring all sorts of strange and bizarre subjects that getting into consciousness. But right now, in the immediate future, I have this Canada's Area 51 coming out with Ash Staunton. And if you don't mind me giving one more plug,
sure.
We have the UFO MegaCon is one of the conferences that'll be at next year, and that's in Nevada, Laughlin, and it's going to be just after I do the event with George Norrie, actually, in Everett, Washington, over there, and on March 23rd. It's going to be pretty much the next day on the 24th, and right after that, I hop on a plane over to Egypt, so it's back to back.
Right on, Johnny. I can't wait to get you back on the show. We've got so much that we've left on the table, but it's your first time through tonight. We had to touch on a little bit of everything, but when you come back, we'll focus and we'll have another great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Jimmy, and thank you to all the Fadernauts for listening with us tonight. Have a great night.
You too. Jonny Enoch, what a great conversation. I expected that. And his YouTube channel, you do have to go and check it out. It's Metaphysical Source, and we've got the links up at jimmychurchradio.com. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. I'll come back and say goodnight, and we'll wrap this show. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
You are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and my family is safe because of Numana Emergency Food Storage. Just go to the Numana banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code Jimmy10.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Got to thank Jonny Enoch, Jonny Enoch. You can follow him on Twitter. It's right there. But his comments, this is the thing. This is what I really enjoy about Fade to Black. He reminds me of so many other researchers that we have brought on this show, like Billy Carson, for instance, that are absolutely breaking down doors in this community and bringing this knowledge out to everybody. And I not only look forward to his next conversation here on Fade to Black, but I want to go back to, he made one comment, well, he made many. How about the park incident? Okay, there's something going on there. The Area 51 up there at Vancouver Island. There's things that are happening right now. I thank Johnny for that. But his comment about Napoleon and coming out of the Great Pyramid and Robert Schoch and his experience there. There's something about the Great Pyramid. When you think about the tonnage, the size, the ginormity of the pressure and what is going on, that there's that part of it going into the king's chamber. I can't imagine the amount of weight that is coming from above and its effects on you, right? And I hear this over and over again. I have not been to Giza. Rita and I are going to be out there soon, and I can't wait for that. And I look forward to the opportunity of going in and experiencing what everybody else has over the years. There's something about it. It was a very interesting comment coming out of Johnny. So much in the show tonight. This incident up at the park, which happened right before Halloween. The images that were presented were one thing, but we had a fate or not that was there. We've got Johnny's son and his friends, and the 3 young women that were at a conference up there. That all this is multiple witness testimony, all pointing at the same thing. That's a pretty interesting case. And then, of course, what was presented tonight with Area 51 of Canada, which is somewhere on Vancouver Island. Very, very interesting. What a great show tonight. I want to thank Johnny for that. And now, tomorrow night, Patrick Wood is going to be here. I just had Patrick on Coast to Coast Sunday night, and we talked about so much. And as the 2.5 hours of straight conversation, and as we got to the end, we had so many unresolved and other things that needed to get discussed. And we were talking about technocracy. So we're going to finish all of that tomorrow night right here on Fade to Black. And you're not going to want to miss this show tomorrow night with Patrick Wood. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Wraps another unbelievable show here tonight. Jonny Enoch. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitola, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA The Planet. It's broadcast owned and copyrighted 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night, Patrick Wood is going to be here. Everybody be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.